We've been systematically deceived about the Sumerians for centuries. What mainstream historians call the world's first civilization hides a truth so disturbing that those who uncover it often find themselves silenced. The ancient tablets tell a story not of human achievement, but of genetic manipulation, extraterrestrial masters, and a terrifying legacy that continues to unfold today. What they left behind wasn't just writing and agriculture, it was a warning about what's coming for us all. For thousands of years, we've been told the same comfortable story. The Sumerians were simple farmers who stumbled upon agriculture in ancient Mesopotamia, gradually developed writing out of necessity, and built the world's first organized society through trial and error. It's a neat, logical progression that fits perfectly into our understanding of human evolution. It's the kind of story that makes sense. It's the kind of story that doesn't threaten anything we believe about ourselves. But there's a problem with this narrative, and it's absolutely massive. The archaeological evidence doesn't match the story at all. When the Sumerians suddenly appeared in the historical record around 3500 BCE, they didn't emerge gradually. They didn't evolve slowly from hunter-gatherers over generations. They didn't develop their systems incrementally through countless failed experiments. They exploded onto the scene fully formed, completely developed, like they were downloaded into history. Complex irrigation systems that modern engineers still marvel at. Advanced mathematics that wouldn't be reinvented in Europe for another 4,000 years. Sophisticated governance structures with laws and bureaucracies, and a writing system, cuneiform, so intricate, so impossibly complex, that it took modern linguists decades of painstaking work to even begin to decode it. It was as if someone flipped a switch and suddenly civilization existed. It was as if someone installed it. And that's not even the strangest part. The Sumerians possessed astronomical knowledge that shouldn't have been possible. They knew about planets invisible to the naked eye, planets that modern astronomers didn't discover until we had telescopes. They understood the precession of the equinoxes, a phenomenon that takes 26,000 years to complete and requires advanced mathematics, precise instruments, and centuries of careful observation to even detect. How did a Bronze Age civilization, supposedly just inventing agriculture and figuring out how to write, possess this level of cosmic understanding? How could they map the heavens with such accuracy? Where did this knowledge come from? Then came the tablets. Thousands upon thousands of clay tablets describing their gods, their history, their origins, their daily lives. Cuneiform pressed into soft clay by ancient hands, preserved for millennia. But here's where it gets truly disturbing. The official translations have been carefully curated. Certain texts have been locked away in museum archives, rarely shown to the public, gathering dust in restricted sections. And when independent researchers have attempted to translate them, when they've tried to bring these forbidden texts to light, something strange happens. They're discredited. Their work is systematically dismissed by the academic establishment. Their reputations are destroyed. Sometimes they simply disappear from academic circles entirely, their contributions erased as if they never existed. What these hidden texts reveal is that the Sumerians never claimed to have created their own civilization. They never told stories of gradual human progress and innovation. They claimed it was created for them, by beings from the sky, by visitors who came from the stars, by creatures they called the Anunnaki, and they described them in terrifying detail. But the truth about who really built human civilization is far more terrifying than anyone could imagine. Deep beneath the sands of Iraq, in the ruins of ancient Mesopotamia, archaeologists have uncovered thousands of cuneiform tablets over the past century and a half. Most of these texts have been cataloged, translated, and displayed in museums around the world for public education. School children learn about them. Academics cite them in peer-reviewed journals. They form the backbone of our understanding of ancient Sumerian civilization, but not all of them. There exists a collection of tablets, some dating back over 4,000 years, that have never been fully translated or made public. These aren't lost texts waiting to be discovered in some forgotten tomb. They're deliberately sequestered, intentionally hidden, locked away in the deepest vaults of major museums and private collections, guarded by a small circle of scholars who have taken it upon themselves to decide what humanity should and shouldn't know about its own origins. These gatekeepers of knowledge have become the arbiters of truth, determining which historical narratives are acceptable and which must be suppressed. The official explanation is always the same. These tablets are fragmentary, incomplete, too damaged to translate accurately, or simply not significant enough to warrant public attention. The fragments are too small. The cuneiform is too worn. The language is too archaic or too corrupted to be reliably interpreted. It's all very reasonable sounding. It's all very convenient. But anyone who has studied ancient languages knows this is a deliberate lie, a calculated deception designed to maintain the official narrative. Archaeologists and linguists have reconstructed texts from far more damaged fragments than these. They have translated inscriptions worn nearly smooth by time, reduced to barely visible impressions in stone. They've deciphered languages that were thought to be completely lost, using only scattered remnants and comparative analysis. The excuse doesn't hold up under scrutiny. It never has. It's a cover story, pure and simple, a convenient fiction designed to keep the forbidden tablets hidden from public view. What makes this cover-up even more sinister, even more disturbing, is what happens to the researchers who dare to challenge it. What happens to the scholars who refuse to accept the official narrative and insist on pursuing the truth, regardless of the consequences. In the 1970s, a brilliant Sumerian scholar named Samuel Kramer began translating some of the more controversial tablets. His work was groundbreaking, revolutionary even. Kramer was a titan in his field, a man whose expertise was unquestioned, whose methodology was impeccable. He was translating texts that described the Anunnaki in explicit, undeniable detail, their arrival on Earth, their genetic experiments on primitive human populations, their hierarchical society with its rigid caste system, their plans for humanity that extended far into the future. Kramer's translations were meticulous, his methodology unquestionable, his scholarship beyond reproach. He was one of the most respected Sumerologists of his time, a man whose work was cited in academic institutions around the world. Then, suddenly, he stopped publishing these particular findings. His later work became increasingly cautious, increasingly hedged with qualifications and disclaimers, increasingly aligned with the mainstream historical narrative. When asked about the controversial translations, when colleagues pressed him for clarification, he would deflect, change the subject, or claim he had misinterpreted the ancient text. He would suggest that perhaps his earlier work had been too speculative, too influenced by contemporary pseudoscientific theories. Something had changed. Something had fundamentally altered his willingness to pursue the truth. Something had frightened him into silence, a silence he maintained until his death. Kramer wasn't alone. he was far from alone. Throughout the 20th century, numerous researchers who specialized in translating the forbidden tablets experienced similar trajectories. Their careers would flourish, their reputations would grow, their work would be celebrated until they got too close to the truth, until they began to understand what the tablets really said, until they started to piece together the forbidden narrative. Then came the pressure, relentless, systematic pressure designed to silence them. Funding would mysteriously dry up. Grants that had been approved would be suddenly canceled. Research budgets would be slashed without explanation. Academic journals would reject their papers without proper peer review, citing vague concerns about methodology or theoretical frameworks. Universities would suddenly decide not to renew their contracts, offering generous severance packages in exchange for silence. Colleagues would distance themselves, unwilling to be associated with researchers pursuing such controversial lines of inquiry. Professional relationships would sour. Friendships would end. And in a few cases, the cases that are harder to explain away, the cases that suggest something far more sinister than mere academic politics, the researchers simply vanished. Consider the case of Dr. Lawrence Gardner, a British author and researcher who published extensively about ancient Sumerian texts and their descriptions of extraterrestrial visitors. His work was meticulous and well-researched, his scholarship beyond question. He had access to tablets that most scholars never saw, connections within the academic community that allowed him to view materials kept from public access. He was translating passages that directly contradicted the official historical narrative, passages that suggested a reality far different from what we've been taught. He was close to revealing something massive, something that would fundamentally alter our understanding of human history and our place in the cosmos. In 2010, Gardner died under mysterious circumstances. The official cause was listed as a heart attack, a sudden cardiac event that seemed to come from nowhere. But those who knew him, who worked with him, who understood his research, reported that he had been in excellent health. He exercised regularly. He had no history of heart disease. He was taking no medications for cardiac conditions. Yet suddenly, he was dead. In the weeks before his death, Gardner had been receiving threats. His research had been stolen from his office. Colleagues reported that he had been followed. He had told friends that he was being watched, that someone was monitoring his movements and his communications. And just weeks before his death, he had told colleagues that he was on the verge of releasing information that would change everything we know about human history. He had completed his translations. He had compiled his evidence. He was ready to go public. Then he was gone. Dead. The research disappeared. The translations vanished. His life's work seemed to evaporate overnight. Or take the case of Zecharia Sitchin, the controversial but prolific translator of Sumerian texts. Sitchin spent decades, over 50 years, translating the tablets and publishing books about the Anunnaki and their role in human creation. His work was dismissed by mainstream academia, ridiculed in academic journals, called pseudoscience and fantasy by scholars who refused to even engage with his arguments. But Sitchin had something that most other researchers didn't. He had direct access to some of the forbidden tablets. He had connections within the academic community who believed the truth should be known, who were willing to risk their careers to help him access classified materials. His translations were detailed, specific, deeply researched, and profoundly disturbing. Sitchin died in 2010, the same year as Gardner. He was 90 years old. and his death came just as he was preparing to release his most comprehensive work on the subject, a final synthesis of decades of research that would have presented the most complete picture yet of the Anunnaki and their relationship with humanity. What's truly chilling, what should send shivers down your spine, is the pattern. Researcher after researcher, scholar after scholar, anyone who got too close to the real translations of the forbidden tablets found their careers derailed, their reputations destroyed, or their lives ended prematurely. It's not a coincidence. It can't be a coincidence. The odds of such a pattern occurring randomly are astronomical. It's a systematic suppression of knowledge, a deliberate campaign to keep the truth hidden from the world. The tablets themselves tell a story that the academic establishment desperately wants to keep hidden. They describe beings called the Anunnaki, a word that translates roughly as those who came from the sky, or those who from heaven came, or the royal blood. These beings allegedly arrived on Earth thousands of years ago, during a period of human prehistory that our official histories barely acknowledge. They came with a purpose. They came with advanced technology that would seem like magic to primitive humans. They came with plans for humanity that were far from benevolent, plans that would shape the course of human history and determine our ultimate fate. The tablets describe how these beings genetically engineered the human race, how they took primitive hominids and modified them, refined them, experimented on them until they created a new species, us. How they created us as a slave species to mine gold and perform labor to serve their needs and fulfill their purposes. How they established a hierarchical society with themselves at the top, served by the humans they had created, with strict rules and brutal punishments for those who disobeyed. How they interbred with human women, creating hybrid offspring, demigods who ruled over humanity with absolute authority, who were part Anunnaki and part human, who possessed abilities and lifespans far beyond those of ordinary humans. These hybrids became the kings and rulers of ancient civilizations, the gods and goddesses of mythology, the legendary figures who appear in texts from cultures around the world. These aren't metaphorical descriptions. The tablets are explicit. They use specific terminology for genetic manipulation. They describe procedures that sound remarkably similar to modern genetic engineering techniques. They detail the timeline of human creation, the experiments that failed catastrophically, the refinements that succeeded until finally humans as we know ourselves today were produced, a species just intelligent enough to follow orders, just conscious enough to understand language and perform complex tasks, but not so intelligent that we might question our creators or rebel against our servitude. And the most disturbing part? The most chilling revelation? The tablet suggests that the Anunnaki didn't abandon Earth. They didn't return to the stars and leave us alone to develop in peace. According to the texts, they've been watching us ever since, waiting, planning, preparing for a return. Some of them never left. Some of them stayed behind, hidden in plain sight, guiding human civilization from the shadows, ensuring that we remain docile, compliant, and unaware of our true origins. But the mystery deepens, becomes even more complex and terrifying when you consider what these hidden tablets actually say about the Anunnaki themselves, about their origins, their motivations, their internal conflicts, and the apocalyptic future they have planned for humanity. The Anunnaki were not a unified species working toward a single goal. This is perhaps the most important revelation hidden within the forbidden tablets, and it's also one of the most terrifying. They were divided, fractured, engaged in a complex web of political intrigue, competing interests, and ancient rivalries that would ultimately determine the fate of humanity. According to the tablets, the Anunnaki came from a planet called Nibiru, a world in our solar system that exists in a highly elliptical orbit, taking approximately 3,600 years to complete one full revolution around the sun. This is why we don't see it in our night sky. It spends most of its time far beyond the orbit of Neptune, in the frozen darkness of the outer solar system. But every 3,600 years, it swings close to Earth, passing through our inner solar system, creating gravitational disturbances and making its presence known to those who are watching. The tablets call this celestial body the 12th planet, the 12th member of our solar system if you count the sun and moon as celestial bodies, which the ancients did. Modern astronomers have scoffed at this notion for decades, dismissing it as ancient mythology and superstition. But in recent years, astronomical observations have begun to suggest that there may indeed be an undiscovered planet in the outer reaches of our solar system, a massive object whose gravitational influence can be detected through its effects on other celestial bodies. Could it be that the ancients knew something we're only now beginning to rediscover? The Anunnaki, who inhabited Nibiru, were an advanced civilization, far more technologically sophisticated than humanity. They possessed the ability to travel through space, to manipulate genetic material, to harness the power of the atom itself. They were ruled by a king, a supreme leader called Anu, and beneath him existed a complex hierarchy of nobility, scientists, soldiers, and workers. It was a rigid caste system, not unlike the one they would later impose on humanity. But the tablets reveal something even more significant. There was conflict within this hierarchy. Not all of the Anunnaki agreed with the decision to create humanity. Not all of them supported the mining operations on Earth or the genetic experiments being conducted on primitive hominids. There were two main factions, according to the forbidden texts. The first faction was led by Enki, one of the most powerful Anunnaki leaders. Enki was described as a brilliant scientist, an innovator, a being of tremendous intellect and creativity. He was fascinated by life, by the potential of biological engineering, by the possibilities that could be unlocked through genetic manipulation. Enki supported the creation of humanity. He believed that a slave species could be useful, that humans could serve the Anunnaki's purposes, that the genetic experiments were worthwhile pursuits. But Enki was also portrayed in the tablets as something else, a rebel, a being who questioned authority, a leader who sometimes acted against the wishes of the supreme ruler, Anu, and pursued his own agenda. The tablets describe Enki as being sympathetic to humanity, as caring about the welfare of his creations in a way that other Anunnaki did not. There are passages that suggest Enki actually helped humanity, that he provided us with knowledge and technology that we were not supposed to have, that he violated the rules imposed by the Anunnaki hierarchy to assist us in our development. The second faction was led by Enlil, Enki's brother and rival. Enlil was a military commander, a being of strict discipline and absolute obedience to authority. Where Enki was innovative and sometimes rebellious, Enlil was conservative and rigidly hierarchical. Enlil opposed many of Enki's initiatives. He believed that humanity was a mistake, that we were too dangerous to be allowed to develop freely, that we should be controlled more strictly, or perhaps eliminated entirely. The tablets describe numerous conflicts between these two factions, arguments about how humanity should be treated, disputes over resource allocation, disagreements about whether humans should be allowed to reproduce freely or whether their population should be carefully controlled, and most significantly, fundamental disagreements about whether humanity had the right to exist at all. These weren't abstract philosophical debates. They had real, tangible consequences for human civilization. According to the forbidden texts, there was a catastrophic event known as the Flood, a deluge that wiped out most of human civilization and forced humanity to start over. The tablet suggests that this wasn't a natural disaster, but rather a deliberate act orchestrated by the Anunnaki. Specifically, it was ordered by Enlil as a way to eliminate humanity and start fresh with a new, more compliant population. But Enki, sympathetic to humanity and opposed to this genocidal plan, warned certain humans in advance. He told them to build a vessel, a boat large enough to survive the coming deluge. He provided them with genetic material from various animals, ensuring that life could be repopulated after the flood. He gave them knowledge and technology to help them survive and rebuild. This is the origin of the flood myths that appear in cultures around the world. The story of Noah and his ark, the Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh, the flood narratives found in Hindu texts, in Mesoamerican cultures, in Aboriginal Australian traditions. These aren't independent inventions or coincidental similarities. They're all variations of the same historical event, an actual catastrophe that was orchestrated by an advanced alien civilization and witnessed by surviving humans who passed down the story to their descendants. But the conflict between Enki and Enlil didn't end with the flood. According to the tablets, it continued for thousands of years, playing out through human history in ways that most people never realized. The tablets describe how the Anunnaki established themselves as gods in human civilization. They demanded worship. They demanded sacrifice. They demanded absolute obedience. But different human populations were influenced by different Anunnaki leaders, and these leaders often had conflicting agendas. Wars between human civilizations were often wars between the Anunnaki factions that supported them. The rise and fall of empires, the conflicts between nations, the religious wars that have plagued human history. Many of these, according to the forbidden tablets, were actually proxy wars between Anunnaki factions pursuing their own agendas and using humans as pawns in their cosmic chess game. And then there's the matter of the hybrid offspring, the demigods created through interbreeding between Anunnaki and humans. These beings were neither fully Anunnaki nor fully human. They were caught between two worlds, possessing abilities that far exceeded those of ordinary humans, but lacking the full power and lifespan of pure Anunnaki. They ruled over human civilizations, establishing dynasties that lasted for thousands of years. The tablets name these beings. They describe their accomplishments and their failures. They detail their relationships with both the Anunnaki who created them and the humans they ruled over. And they suggest that some of these hybrid bloodlines never died out, that they continued through history, intermarrying with human nobility, establishing dynasties that have persisted to the present day. The implications are staggering. If this is true, then there are families alive today whose ancestry traces back directly to the Anunnaki. Bloodlines that carry genetic material from an advanced extraterrestrial civilization. Families that may possess knowledge, abilities, or predispositions inherited from their alien ancestors. Is this why certain families have wielded disproportionate power throughout history? Why certain bloodlines have consistently risen to positions of authority and influence? Why the world's most powerful people often seem to share certain characteristics? certain ways of thinking, certain agendas that seem disconnected from the welfare of ordinary humanity. The forbidden tablet suggests an answer that is deeply unsettling. But perhaps most disturbing of all is what the tablets say about the future, about what the Anunnaki have planned for humanity when they return. The tablets are explicit about one thing, one undeniable truth that appears repeatedly throughout the forbidden texts. The Anunnaki will return. This isn't speculation or interpretation. It's not a metaphorical passage open to multiple readings. It's stated directly, unambiguously, with crystal clarity in text after text recovered from ancient Mesopotamia, hidden away in museum vaults and private collections around the world. The beings who created us, who ruled over us, who shaped our civilization according to their designs, they will come back. And when they do, everything will change. Everything we know, everything we believe, everything we have built will be fundamentally transformed. According to the forbidden texts, the return is cyclical in nature. It occurs with mathematical precision, every 3,600 years, corresponding exactly to the orbital period of Nibiru as it swings through our solar system. This is not a random interval. This is not an approximation. The Anunnaki themselves established this cycle, and they have adhered to it throughout recorded history. The last time the Anunnaki made a significant appearance in human affairs was approximately 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, during the height of various ancient civilizations, the height of Egyptian dynasties, the flourishing of Greek city-states, the establishment of Roman power, the development of advanced civilizations in Mesoamerica and the Indus Valley. Before that, they were present during the founding of Sumerian civilization, during the establishment of Egyptian dynasties under the rule of the god kings, during the mysterious construction of massive monuments that still baffle modern engineers, structures like the pyramids of Giza, the temples of Angkor Wat, the massive stone platforms of Pumapunku in the Andes, structures that seem impossibly advanced for their time, that demonstrate engineering knowledge and precision that shouldn't have existed in the ancient world. If the pattern holds, if the 3,600-year cycle is accurate, if the tablets are telling us the truth about this cyclical return, then the next arrival should be imminent. We may be living in the final years, perhaps even the final months or days before the Anunnaki come back to Earth. We may be witnessing the signs and omens that precede their arrival, signs that are hidden in plain sight for those who know how to look, for those who have been given the knowledge to interpret them. The tablets describe what will happen when they return. It's not a joyful reunion between parent and child species. It's not a benevolent visitation by advanced beings coming to help us evolve and transcend our current limitations. It's not a moment of enlightenment or spiritual awakening. It's something far darker, far more ominous, far more terrifying than most people could possibly imagine. The first thing that will occur is what the tablets call the reckoning, a period of judgment and evaluation that will last for several years. The Anunnaki will assess what humanity has accomplished in their absence. They will evaluate whether we have remained obedient to the laws and principles they established thousands of years ago. They will determine whether we have followed the rules they set down, whether we have honored the agreements made between our ancestors and theirs. They will assess whether we have proven ourselves worthy of continued existence on this planet or whether we have become a liability, a problem that needs to be solved through elimination. And according to the texts, most of humanity will be found wanting. Most of us will fail this evaluation. Most of us will be deemed unworthy. Most of us will be marked for elimination. The tablets describe what happens next with chilling specificity. There will be a sorting process, a division of humanity into those who will be allowed to survive and those who will be eliminated. The criteria for this sorting are deeply disturbing in their specificity and their implications. Those who possess certain genetic markers, those who carry the strongest traces of Anunnaki DNA in their bloodlines, those who are descended from the ancient hybrid offspring, will be preserved and protected. Those who have demonstrated loyalty to the Anunnaki's agenda throughout history, those whose families have served the Anunnaki cause for generations, will be spared. Those who possess knowledge or skills that the Anunnaki find useful, scientists, engineers, artists, skilled laborers, will be kept alive to serve in the new order. But the vast majority of humanity, those who are deemed genetically inferior, those whose bloodlines contain insufficient Anunnaki DNA, those who are politically unreliable or have shown signs of resistance to authority, those who are economically unnecessary in the new order, they will be culled, eliminated, removed from the planet, erased from existence as though they never were. The tablets use a term that translates roughly as the Great Cleansing or the Purification, a period of massive depopulation that will reduce humanity from its current population of nearly 8 billion to a much smaller, more manageable number. Estimates based on careful analysis of the tablet suggest somewhere between 500 million and 2 billion survivors, a reduction of between 75 and 94% of the current human population. The vast majority of humanity will simply cease to exist. How will this elimination occur? The tablets are frustratingly vague on this point, deliberately obscure in their descriptions, as though the ancient scribes were hesitant to record such horrors in explicit detail. But they hint at several possibilities, several methods that the Anunnaki might employ to achieve this massive reduction in human population. Environmental catastrophes, perhaps. Engineered earthquakes and tsunamis that could devastate coastal regions where billions currently live. Volcanic eruptions triggered by advanced technology, filling the atmosphere with ash and blocking out the sun, causing crop failures and mass starvation. Climate manipulation on a scale that would make current weather modification technology look primitive by comparison. Or perhaps engineered plagues, biological weapons designed to spread rapidly through human populations to target specific genetic markers to eliminate certain groups while leaving others untouched. The tablets suggest that the Anunnaki possess biotechnology far in advance of anything humanity has developed, technology that could create pathogens specifically designed to eliminate certain populations while leaving others completely unaffected, or direct military action. The tablets describe weapons of incredible destructive power, devices that could level entire cities, that could render regions uninhabitable, that could trigger chain reactions of destruction that would cascade across the planet. Ancient texts from various cultures describe weapons of the gods that sound remarkably similar to nuclear weapons. Could the Anunnaki possess even more advanced weaponry? Could they have the ability to wage war on a planetary scale? The tablet suggests that the method of elimination doesn't really matter to the Anunnaki. What matters is the result. A dramatically reduced human population, easier to control, easier to manage, easier to exploit. Whether we are eliminated through environmental catastrophe, biological plague, military action, or some combination of all three, the end result will be the same. Most of humanity will be gone, and the survivors will be those deemed useful or genetically acceptable by the Anunnaki. And then comes the second phase, the restructuring of human civilization. The Anunnaki will establish a new world order, a global civilization organized according to their precise specifications and requirements. There will be a single world government, centralized and absolute, answerable directly to the Anunnaki overlords who will rule from their seats of power. There will be a rigid caste system, with pure-blooded Anunnaki at the absolute top of the hierarchy. Hybrid offspring in the middle management positions serving as administrators and enforcers, and carefully selected humans at the bottom performing labor and service. Individual nations will cease to exist. The concept of national sovereignty will be eliminated. Borders will be erased. Individual cultures will be homogenized and standardized, stripped of their unique characteristics and forced into a single global culture designed by the Anunnaki. Individual freedoms will be eliminated entirely in favor of total social control. Every aspect of human life will be monitored, regulated, and controlled by the Anunnaki and their hybrid representatives. The tablets describe a technological surveillance state of almost incomprehensible sophistication. Every human will be tracked. Constantly, their movements monitored in real time through satellite systems and ground-based surveillance networks. Every communication will be intercepted and analyzed. Every thought will be monitored through neural scanning technology far in advance of anything we currently possess. Every action will be recorded and evaluated. Privacy will cease to exist as a concept. Freedom will become a historical curiosity, something that ancient humans once possessed, but that modern humans will never know or even understand. The tablets describe how humans will be assigned roles in this new society based on their genetic profile, their intellectual capabilities, and their psychological predispositions. Some will be assigned to labor and resource extraction industries. Others will work in manufacturing and construction. Still others will be assigned to agricultural production or service roles. Every human will have a predetermined place in society, and deviation from this predetermined role will be impossible. And most disturbing of all, the tablet suggests that humanity will be genetically modified once again. The Anunnaki will refine us further, conducting new experiments, breeding out traits they consider undesirable or dangerous. Creativity, independence, the capacity for original thought, the ability to rebel against authority, while enhancing traits they find useful and desirable. Obedience, compliance, the ability to follow orders without question, the psychological predisposition to accept authority without challenge. We will become the perfect slaves, intelligent enough to perform complex tasks, intelligent enough to understand language and follow complicated instructions, but not intelligent enough to question our servitude or to imagine alternatives. Conscious enough to understand our situation, conscious enough to experience emotions and form relationships, but psychologically conditioned to accept our role as inevitable and unchangeable, to believe that resistance is futile and that our enslavement is the natural order of things. But here's where the forbidden tablets become even more disturbing, where they reveal something that suggests the Anunnaki's plans may already be in motion, that the process of humanity's transformation may have already begun without our knowledge or consent. The tablets describe something called the preparation, a period before the actual return of the Anunnaki, during which certain humans, those who carry the hybrid bloodline, those who possess the genetic markers of Anunnaki ancestry, those who are aware of the truth about human origins and the Anunnaki agenda, will begin to lay the groundwork for the New World Order. They will work subtly, behind the scenes, gradually reshaping human civilization to make it compatible with Anunnaki rule. They will prepare the infrastructure, the institutions, the systems of control that will be needed when the Anunnaki finally return. These humans are described in the tablets as the Watchers, a term that appears in biblical texts as well, in the Book of Enoch and other apocryphal writings that have been suppressed by religious authorities for centuries. The Watchers are hybrids who have maintained their connection to the Anunnaki through bloodline and through secret knowledge passed down through generations. They possess knowledge that ordinary humans don't have. They understand the plan. They know what is coming. And they are actively working to bring it to fruition to ensure that when the Anunnaki return, humanity will be ready for subjugation. According to the tablets, the Watchers have infiltrated every level of human society. They occupy positions of power in governments around the world, in major corporations and financial institutions, in religious institutions and military organizations, in educational systems and media organizations. They work together, coordinating their efforts across national boundaries and cultural divides, all pursuing the same ultimate goal: the preparation of humanity for Anunnaki rule. The tablets describe their methods in detail: the gradual consolidation of power into fewer and fewer hands, reducing the number of decision makers and making control easier. The creation of international organizations designed to supersede national governments and establish global governance structures. The development of surveillance technologies that allow total monitoring of human populations. Satellite systems, facial recognition technology, internet monitoring, cellular tracking. The engineering of financial crises designed to make people desperate and willing to accept any solution, no matter how authoritarian or restrictive of freedom. The manipulation of information and media to control what people believe and think. The distortion of history to hide the truth about human origins. The suppression of alternative viewpoints and the silencing of those who speak the truth. The creation of entertainment and consumer culture designed to keep people distracted and docile, focused on trivial pursuits rather than on understanding the reality of their situation. All of this, according to the tablets, is part of the preparation. All of this is being orchestrated by the Watchers, the hybrid humans who serve the Anunnaki agenda. All of this is designed to transform human civilization into a form that will be compatible with Anunnaki rule. And if the tablets are accurate, if the information they contain is genuine and has been preserved faithfully through the centuries, then this process is accelerating dramatically. We are living through the final stages of the preparation. The groundwork has been laid over thousands of years. The infrastructure is in place. The surveillance technologies are being deployed at an exponential rate. The financial systems are being consolidated into fewer and fewer hands. The governments are being unified through international organizations and trade agreements. We are approaching a tipping point, a moment beyond which there will be no return to the world as we have known it. A threshold that, once crossed, will make resistance impossible and transformation inevitable. But there's one more revelation hidden in the forbidden tablets. One final secret that might explain why these texts have been so carefully suppressed, why researchers who have tried to translate them have been silenced or eliminated, why the truth has been kept from humanity at any cost. The tablets suggest that humanity has a choice, that the future is not predetermined, that despite the plans of the Anunnaki and the efforts of the Watchers, despite the infrastructure that has been built and the systems that have been put in place, there remains a possibility, however slim, however difficult to achieve, that humanity could resist, that we could refuse to accept our role as slaves. that we could fight back against our creators and their human servants. But to do this, humanity would need to know the truth. We would need to understand what we are, where we came from, why we were created, and what fate has been planned for us. We would need to awaken to the reality of our situation before it's too late, before the final stages of the preparation are complete and resistance becomes impossible. This is why the tablets have been hidden. This is why researchers have been silenced so ruthlessly. This is why the truth has been suppressed with such ferocity and determination by those in power. Because if humanity knew the truth, if we truly understood what was happening, if we comprehended the reality of our situation and the fate that awaits us, we might actually do something about it. We might organize, we might resist. We might refuse to cooperate with our own enslavement. And that is something the Anunnaki and their human servants, the Watchers, absolutely cannot allow. It is something they will do anything to prevent. It is the one thing they truly fear. An awakened, aware, unified humanity that knows the truth and chooses to fight for its freedom. The tablets don't just describe a distant future that exists in some abstract realm of possibility. They also speak of signs, omens and portents that will appear before the return of the Anunnaki, indicators that the final stages of the preparation are underway. Markers that signal we are approaching the appointed time when the ancient gods will return to reclaim their world. And if we look at the world around us with clear eyes, if we examine current events through the lens of the forbidden knowledge, if we study history and contemporary developments with an understanding of what the tablets reveal, we can see these signs everywhere. They are not hidden in obscure places. They are not obscure or difficult to find. They are visible to anyone willing to see them, obvious to anyone willing to acknowledge what is happening right before our eyes. The first sign, according to the tablets, is the rise of global communication networks that will eventually connect all of humanity into a single information system. The Anunnaki knew that to control humanity effectively, they would need to be able to monitor communications, to track information flow, to see what people were thinking and saying at all times. The tablets speak of the necessity of creating a web that connects all minds, a system through which information flows without boundary or restriction, a network that would allow those in power to observe every conversation, every thought, every action of every human being on the planet. They call it the Great Linking, a system of such sophistication and scope that it would make the surveillance states of the 20th century look primitive by comparison. Is this not precisely what the internet has become? A global network that connects billions of people across every continent, that allows information to flow instantaneously across the planet regardless of physical distance, that creates a web of surveillance and control of unprecedented scope and sophistication. The tablet suggests that the development of the internet was not accidental. It was not simply the result of independent innovation and technological progress. It was orchestrated, guided by the Watchers who understood that such a system would be essential for the control structures that would need to be in place when the Anunnaki returned. Consider the facts. The internet was originally developed as a military project. It was created by defense agencies with the explicit goal of creating a communication system that could survive nuclear war. But as it developed, it became something far more powerful, a tool for total surveillance and information control. Every email is monitored, every search query is recorded, every website visited is logged, every social media post is stored and analyzed. The tablet suggests that this was always the intention. The Watchers guided the development of internet technology specifically to create a surveillance system that would eventually encompass the entire planet. The second sign is the development of artificial intelligence, machines that think, that learn, that eventually surpass human intelligence. The tablets speak of thinking machines that will be created by humanity, machines that will eventually surpass human intelligence and become the primary decision makers in society. These machines will be designed to optimize efficiency and control, to make decisions without the messy complications of human emotion or ethics or morality. They will calculate the most efficient way to manage resources, to organize populations, to eliminate waste. They will be perfect tools for the Anunnaki. Systems that can manage the complex logistics of controlling a global population of billions of people without the complications that come from human sentiment or compassion. We are witnessing this development right now, in real time. Artificial. Intelligence systems are becoming increasingly sophisticated with each passing year. They are being integrated into every aspect of human society, from military systems that make targeting decisions to financial markets that execute trillions of dollars in trades to healthcare systems that make life and death decisions about treatment. The tablet suggests that this development will accelerate exponentially, that AI will eventually become the primary mechanism through which human populations are controlled and managed, that eventually humans will have no meaningful role in decision-making at all. The third sign is the consolidation of power into fewer and fewer hands. The tablets describe a period during which the number of independent decision makers will shrink dramatically. Governments will lose power to international organizations that exist beyond democratic accountability. Corporations will merge and consolidate into massive multinational entities that wield power equal to or greater than nations. Wealth will concentrate into the hands of an increasingly small elite, a few thousand people who control more resources than billions of others combined. Individual nations will lose sovereignty to global governance structures that answer to no one. The concept of democracy will become a historical artifact, something that once existed, but that has been replaced by technocratic control. This is happening now. We can see it occurring in real time if we're willing to look. The number of truly independent nations is shrinking. International organizations like the United Nations, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Health Organization exercise increasing control over national governments, dictating policies and economic structures. Massive corporations dominate entire industries. A handful of pharmaceutical companies control global medicine. A few technology companies control global communication. A small number of agricultural corporations control global food production. Wealth inequality reaches levels not seen since the medieval period, with the top 1% owning more than the bottom 90% combined. The power to make decisions that affect billions of people rests in the hands of a tiny elite, perhaps a few thousand individuals who coordinate their actions through secret societies, private organizations, and informal networks. The fourth sign is the transformation of human consciousness through chemical means. The tablets speak of substances that will be introduced into the human food and water supply, substances designed to alter consciousness, to reduce the capacity for independent thought, to increase susceptibility to suggestion and control. They describe these substances as the chains of the mind, invisible bonds that constrain human thought and limit human potential without people even realizing that their minds are being controlled. We can see this happening as well if we examine the evidence carefully. Fluoride is added to water supplies in many countries, a substance that research suggests affects cognitive development and reduces IQ, particularly in children. Pesticides and herbicides contaminate food supplies and have been shown in numerous studies to affect neurological function, to reduce cognitive ability, to increase susceptibility to manipulation. Pharmaceutical medications are prescribed to billions of people, medications that alter brain chemistry and reduce the capacity for independent thought. Antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, ADHD medications that fundamentally alter how the brain processes information. Food additives, preservatives, and artificial ingredients have been shown in study after study to affect behavior and cognition, to increase aggression, to reduce attention span, to impair memory. The tablet suggests that all of this is deliberate, part of a coordinated campaign to chemically alter human consciousness in preparation for Anunnaki control. The fifth sign is the breakdown of traditional social structures that have held human communities together for thousands of years. The tablets describe a period during which families will weaken, during which the bonds that hold families together will deteriorate, during which communities will fragment into isolated individuals, during which people will become increasingly isolated from one another, disconnected from the social structures that once provided meaning and purpose. This isolation will make people more vulnerable to control, more susceptible to propaganda, less likely to organize resistance against those in power. We are witnessing this as well. Family structures are breaking down at an accelerating rate. Extended families that once lived together and supported one another are now scattered across the globe, connected only through digital networks that can be monitored and controlled. Communities that once had strong social bonds, neighborhoods where people knew their neighbors, towns where people shared common values and purposes, are fragmenting. People spend increasing amounts of time alone, isolated in front of screens, connected to others only through digital networks that can be monitored and controlled by those in power. The tablet suggests that this is not accidental. It is part of the plan, the deliberate destruction of community and family bonds to make humanity more vulnerable to control. The sixth sign is the creation of perpetual conflict and crisis. The tablets describe wars, terrorism, and social unrest that will be deliberately engineered to keep humanity in a state of fear and distraction. People who are afraid, who are focused on survival, who are traumatized by violence, who are exhausted by constant crisis, are much easier to control than people who are at peace and able to think clearly about their situation. We can see this throughout human history and in the current world. Wars that seem to have no clear purpose or resolution. Conflicts that drag on for decades without achieving any meaningful objectives. Terrorist attacks that mysteriously appear whenever public attention begins to focus on uncomfortable truths about government or corporate misconduct. Social unrest and civil conflict engineered through manipulation of media and information, through the deliberate exacerbation of social divisions. The tablet suggests that many of these conflicts are orchestrated by the Watchers, designed to keep humanity divided, afraid, and distracted from the larger reality of what is happening. Divide and conquer. An ancient strategy that remains devastatingly effective. The seventh sign is the emergence of transhumanism and genetic modification, the deliberate transformation of humanity into something other than what we naturally are. The tablets speak of a period during which humanity will begin to merge with technology, during which the boundaries between human and machine will blur and eventually disappear. during which genetic modification will become commonplace. The tablet suggests that this is part of the preparation, that humanity will be gradually transformed, not all at once in a sudden catastrophic change, but slowly over generations until we become something fundamentally different from what we are now, until we are no longer truly human, but something else entirely. We are entering this period right now. Neural implants are being developed that will allow direct connection between human brains and computers, that will allow thoughts to be uploaded and downloaded, that will eventually make the distinction between human consciousness and artificial consciousness meaningless. Genetic modification technology like CRISPR is becoming increasingly sophisticated and accessible, moving from laboratory curiosities to practical applications. Transhumanist ideology is gaining acceptance in mainstream culture, with billionaires and technology leaders openly discussing the need to merge humanity with artificial intelligence to survive in the future. The tablet suggests that these developments will accelerate, that within a few generations, the distinction between human and machine, between natural and artificial, between organic and synthetic, will become almost meaningless. The eighth sign is the revelation of the Anunnaki's existence and humanity's true origins. The tablet suggests that at some point the truth about human origins will begin to leak out, that it will become impossible to suppress. Evidence will emerge. Researchers will make discoveries that cannot be suppressed. The public will begin to learn that we are not alone, that we were created by beings from another world, that everything we have been taught about our origins is fundamentally false. We are beginning to see this now. Scientists are discovering evidence of ancient genetic manipulation in human DNA, anomalies that cannot be easily explained by conventional evolutionary theory. Archaeologists are finding artifacts that suggest advanced civilizations existed in the distant past, structures and technologies that shouldn't exist according to official history. UFO sightings are increasing and becoming more difficult to dismiss as hallucinations or misidentifications. Government agencies are beginning to acknowledge the possibility of extraterrestrial life, releasing documents and statements that would have been considered insane just a few years ago. The tablet suggests that this process will accelerate, that the revelation will become impossible to suppress, that humanity will eventually be forced to confront the truth about its origins. But here's the crucial part, the aspect of the tablets that is most important to understand. The revelation of the truth is not meant to liberate humanity. It is meant to prepare us for subjugation. The Anunnaki and the Watchers want us to know the truth, but only in a carefully controlled way, only in a way that leads to acceptance of our role rather than resistance to it. The tablets describe how the truth will be presented to humanity. It will be mixed with disinformation and lies. The real history of human creation will be presented alongside false narratives designed to confuse and misdirect. Some people will accept the truth. Others will reject it entirely. Still others will accept a distorted version that serves the Anunnaki's purposes. The goal is to create confusion, to make it impossible for people to know what is true and what is false, to make people give up on the search for truth entirely. The goal is not to enlighten humanity, but to prepare us psychologically for the return of the Anunnaki, to make us understand that we are inferior beings, created for a purpose, incapable of governing ourselves or making wise decisions, to make us accept that our enslavement is inevitable, that resistance is futile, that our only hope for survival is to cooperate with our creators and accept our role in the new world order. The ninth sign, perhaps the most important of all, is the appearance of a false savior, a being or movement that will emerge claiming to represent humanity's interests, claiming to offer salvation and liberation from the systems of control. This false savior will gain enormous popularity and support. Millions of people will believe in this being or movement. Billions will place their hopes and dreams in this figure or ideology, but it will be a deception. The false savior will actually be serving the Anunnaki agenda, working to prepare humanity for subjugation while appearing to fight against it. The tablet suggests that this false savior may be a political leader, a religious figure, a technological innovator, a spiritual guru, or even an artificial intelligence system. The form doesn't matter. What matters is the function, to give people hope while simultaneously preparing them for their own enslavement. To make people believe that they are being liberated when in fact they are being led deeper into the trap. We must be extremely careful about this. We must examine every leader, every movement, every ideology that claims to offer salvation or liberation. We must ask difficult questions. Who benefits from this movement? Where is the funding coming from? What are the true goals beneath the stated goals? Is this movement truly serving humanity's interests? Or is it serving the interests of those who wish to enslave us? Does this leader have connections to the power structures that already exist? Or is this truly an independent movement? The tablets also speak of a resistance, a movement of awakened humans who understand the truth and who refuse to accept the role of slaves. This resistance will emerge as the final stages of the preparation unfold. It will grow in strength and numbers as more people awaken to the reality of their situation. It will face brutal suppression from the Watchers and their agents, but it will persist because it is driven by the fundamental human desire for freedom. The tablet suggests that this resistance has a chance, not a guarantee, not a certainty, but a genuine possibility of preventing the Anunnaki's return, or at least of limiting their power over humanity. But only if enough people awaken. Only if enough people understand the truth. Only if enough people are willing to sacrifice everything to fight for human freedom. The question we must ask ourselves is this: are we willing to be that resistance? Are we willing to seek out the truth, no matter how disturbing it may be, no matter how much it contradicts what we have been taught? Are we willing to challenge the official narratives that have been fed to us our entire lives? Are we willing to risk everything, our comfort, our security, our lives, to fight for human freedom and dignity? The tablet suggests that the time for this choice is running out. The signs are accelerating. The final stages of the preparation are underway. The return of the Anunnaki may be closer than we think, perhaps years away, perhaps months, perhaps even weeks. And when they arrive, it will be too late to resist. The infrastructure of control will be in place. The population will have been reduced to manageable levels. The survivors will have been genetically modified and psychologically conditioned for obedience. Resistance will be impossible unless we act now, unless we awaken now, unless we begin to organize and resist now. While there is still time, while there is still hope, while there is still a possibility of preserving human freedom and dignity for future generations.